Hello creatives of the internet. As you can see, again, I have a gameplay in the background. But dude, it's so much faster than animating. And it's also friendly for people who just listen, because it doesn't really rely on motion graphics. So besides my epic gameplay, I don't know about you, but it seems to me that enshittification became a standard for many leading companies. For instance, in games, the leading companies used to compete on who would make the better experience for the player. And today it seems more like they're trying to make games that fit their interests and not the markets. And I find that ultra funny. I like where we're heading, this is just ultra funny. And also many agree that today's content in general feels bland. Would it be on social media, Netflix, gaming, marketing, or whatever else you have in mind. At this point, the idea that companies ruin what we love became a meme. Like, I'm pretty sure that most of you heard for the term enshittification. And I want to talk about if corporate world can exist with creativity. And the answer is no. Thanks for watching. Nah, I'm just kidding. I mean, because of the standard culture in corporations, it's hard for creativity to exist with it. I just want to talk about how corporations usually end up with a non-creative culture, and how it often leads to enshittification of their product or service. So let's start from the beginning. So at first, we have somebody who creates a good game or a great film, a viral post or whatever. Basically, their work just goes viral or they make it world class, which means they get a lot of attention from the general public, but also from investors, big names, and leading companies. And here's where most cultures get fooled. They see someone's work that generates a lot of profit, gets a lot of attention, and all of that crap that they really want to achieve. And they're so sure that there's a system or a formula behind it that they can articulate or copy to get the same result. And this is what we call exploitation. Exploitation is when we try to find the thing that brings the result and then maximize it as much as we can. This is what we see with the movies that all feel the same, cliché stories, games that feel bland and boring, and to me it seems that most of YouTube videos follow the same formula, hoping to get a lot of views. More often than not, copying a formula doesn't really bring the results it promises, because a lot of factors play in one's work of success. What usually makes the work succeed is a lot of trial and error, uniqueness, and the fresh feeling it brings. And of course, always, some luck. If you try and copy it, it usually doesn't have the same effect as recreating it would have for the person who made it, because they already have the eyeballs from the previous work, or they signed a deal with a bigger company that guarantees some amount of viewers. Then the work they're the most familiar with is more likely to be successful again. But even then, when someone creates a world-class work, it's rarely achieved again, since the hype of the first work also did a lot of heavy lifting. But okay, let's say somebody creates a world-class work, then they start getting a lot of calls from investors and companies throwing their money at them, because everybody wants a piece of that profit pie, if you know what I mean. Now, let's say they accept someone's proposal, and they recreate their work many times. They make few more successful works and bring the profit investors hoped for. And suddenly, we have a new standard! Yippee! Then everybody starts copying the standard and believe that if they follow it, they are more likely to achieve what the other guy did. Who are we to judge it or to question it? Did we achieve that? Did we achieve what the other guy did? No, we didn't. So we must shut up. The biggest problem is when it becomes hard to convince other companies to create their unique style. They usually don't want to do it because they think it's risky or whatever excuse they pull out of their ass. Or some risk manager says nah, which is the biggest bullshit of a title in my opinion, but okay. But not only that, if the person who created world-class work accepted the investor's contract, wants to do something different, the investors will pull out their funding because they don't want him, they don't want the creative, they want the results he created with his last work, and they want him to do it again. Because something new feels less predictable, but that's fully based on inductive logic. It's basically logical assumptions based on observations. Like if we saw 1,000 swans and every single one of them were white, we'd assume every single next one will be also white. But when we discovered a black swan in Australia, the whole assumption fell apart. It's the same with this. If we think one formula makes the result predictable because of the consistent results in the past, then once that formula brings completely different results, that assumption falls apart. The book Fooled by Randomness talks about this, and it talks more about the patterns we think we found that guarantee some kind of outcome, but it was mostly random and backed by luck. Standards create a false sense of security, and it keeps creatives away from exploring and taking risks, which is the most necessary part of creativity. The openness to experience, to explore and take risks. And I find it so funny how common it is for rich people to give advice on how important it is to take risks, but when it actually comes to taking actual risks, they pussy out. Because they have this idea in their head where they want to take an action that requires the least risks but brings the most amount of profit, and they call that a smart decision. But the problem is there is no actual way to measure that besides inductive logic, so relying simply on that is just dumb. We like to think that we can predict and control way more than what we actually can, which doesn't mean it's all luck. A great part isn't, but it's also an important factor. Hundreds of other factors play in one's success that when we try to cut them down to top 3, it's just foolish to blindly follow them. Again, for more of that, you can read the book Fooled by Randomness. And today, for those who have the balls to take risks in their unique way and get great outcomes, they're suddenly viewed as geniuses and they get the same treatment as the first guy. What's the formula? Here's my money, do it for me. Again, here's how he did it. This changed the industry forever. We have a new standard. We discovered a new thing. I believe you see the absurdity of it. And that's why most company cultures don't use creativity well and make shitty products. This doesn't mean it's not possible for companies to be creative. In fact, many companies used to have or have a great creative culture and continue to make great things. How do they achieve that? Well, more on that in some other video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Until the next one, keep being original and stay creative.